Welcome to the Art of Procurement, the official podcast of the Catalyst Co-community. And our purpose is to enhance the impact of procurement by elevating the discussion one conversation at a time. Here at Art of Procurement, Catalysts come together every single week to share their challenges, ideas, successes, and perspectives on the business of procurement. Hi there everybody, I'm Philip Heights and I want to thank you for tuning in to the show today. And I'll be honest and say that this week we had some technical issues, and so I thought I would dig into the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast archive to bring you an episode from earlier in the summer. And as regular listeners will know, here at Art of Procurement we also publish this podcast called the Sourcing Industry Landscape, and it's hosted by Dawn Tiura, the CEO of SIG. You can check out the pod at the Art of Procurement website or by searching in your favourite podcast app. And in fact, this week actually marks the start of a special series showcasing the finalists for SIG's Future of Sourcing Awards. So there's going to be a few pods that are published through the sourcing industry landscape over the next couple of weeks. Well, in this episode, Dawn's guest is Joe Postiglione. Joe is the Chief Procurement Officer for the National Basketball Association, or NBA. And Joe's also the author of Don't Believe Everything You Think, Change the Way You Feel by Changing the Way You Think, in which he advocates for living in the moment and understanding the impact that emotion has on decision-making. By utilizing his training as a certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Joe takes a people-first approach to procurement that builds trust among internal stakeholders, as well as establishing a judgment-free zone among his direct reports. The result: better business results with minimal friction. It's a really good episode. It's one that flew under the radar by virtue of the fact that it was published on July the 4th. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's go straight into the conversation with Joe. And next week, I'll be back with an interview about initial coin offerings and cryptocurrencies. So something a little bit different. I hope you have a great week.
Hello, everyone. This is Dawn Tiura from Sourcing Industry Group, and I'm pleased to welcome you back to Art of Procurement. I've got a very different interview that we're going to be having today, and you just have to listen and find out why. But I've got an incredibly interesting man who has an interesting story and an interesting approach. It's one of the first times I've heard of this talent set wrapped up in a CPO. And not only is he a CPO, but he's a CPO of the NBA. So he's got a very unique position in that regard as well. So I want to introduce you all today to Joseph Postiglione Sr. He is the Chief Procurement Officer for the National Basketball Association. So Joseph, welcome to Art of Procurement.
Thank you, Dawn. Good to be here with you and to share my insights with the listeners.
So, you're at the NBA. So first off, that's pretty cool. And I'm sure you're the envy of almost everybody you talk to in the CPO world. So just tell me just a little bit about what it is like to be the CPO of the NBA.
It's true. I get so many interesting comments and statements about what sounds like the best job in the world, and of course I think it is as well. And it's an interesting environment from several levels. Obviously because it's the NBA, and second because I came here with the opportunity to build a global procurement function. So this is a business that has millions and millions of fans across the world. It's truly a global brand, and the business is booming. It's just spectacular. And so the opportunity from the point of view of the league, and let me explain what that means. So if you were to look at a visual, right, and the league is sort of the point guard. It's a center circle that's the direct recipient of the 30 professional teams around it. So the 30 teams, in fact, own the business of the game, and the league sits in the middle that essentially runs the game of basketball. It puts on the production of the events, the transmission and the streaming services that go around it, all of the offerings that go out to the fans vis-a-vis League Pass and some of the other streaming types of services. So it truly is the production of the game of basketball. And so from that point of view, it's a very interesting set of businesses and services that go on to produce the game. And I sit in that the point guard circle of the middle. I don't support the teams, but I do support the production of the game of basketball. So from that point of view, I get to see the inside, the data center, the replay center, involved in many different interesting aspects for the production of the game of basketball. So from that point of view, it's very different from other procurement-related activities that I've had in the past, or even jobs for that matter. And so it's a very interesting point of view from a CPO's perspective of the game of basketball. And so the direct product is the production of the game, and the indirect services that surround it to actually put it on.
So you're under a lot of stress then. If the game is not produced well, or if one of your feeds isn't working, do they point the finger at you?
This is not directly related to me. So the contracts and the services that go into the identification of the specifications are done by others, and some significantly brilliant people that are in places to do that. So those specifications and the short list of suppliers come to me in a cooperative way, and then we put the agreements in place that best support it. So if something goes bad, which I can tell you, it is remarkable how few times that happens.
Knock on wood.
It's not knock on wood indeed. It's not a direct result of anyone or anything. So here, this is one of the parts of the wonderful environment, that there is no finger pointing. There is just a massive collection of response to correct it.
Wow. I think that's pretty neat. But, how did you make the leap? Because you were before at NYU Langone Medical Center, which is one of the best medical centers in the world. So your spend profile had to be dramatically different. So can you tell me about how you made that move and what prompted you to make that move?
Sure. It's an interesting, my history is quite interesting actually from a number of different perspectives. And so my career has been almost equally spent between management consulting with Deloitte, Pricewaterhouse. I did some events with Oracle. So I've had a rather unique set of experiences where you learn the art and the role of consultancy, always around procurement and supply chain related activities. And then the second half of my career has been in the corporate space or in the private space with entities like, as you mentioned, NYU Langone Medical Center, Bristol Myers, and a host of other large corporations. So I've had the opportunity from a category point of view to see business from many, many different perspectives. And the thing that allows the transition, at least for me, to be not difficult at all is really in the focus and the subject matter expertise of how procurement needs to be built and managed. And because I'm at a level now where I don't need to be as concerned about my subject matter expertise at the category level, the selection of qualified people and making sure your team is rounded and coming from a very positive and proactive place is really the focus that I have. So to your question, the healthcare space is extremely difficult from many different perspectives. And so the politics, if you will, the change management sets of activities are vastly different because you're dealing with doctors and their physician preference. And that's not always, but many times in conflict with an economical matter or decision that has to do with, this pair of surgical gloves versus that pair of surgical gloves, even though the difference is 90 cents to maybe $3.75, right? So you have a couple of different interesting conversations that develop. So it's different from the perspective of change management and your ability to impact the change as opposed to in a corporate setting where it's a little easier.
Yeah, it's funny. I spent some time consulting myself, and I was at Kaiser Permanente out in California, and doctors and nurses, boy, they love to just throw, people are going to die, by every change you possibly want to suggest to them. So you probably don't get that in the NBA, but I think you probably get more passionate fans and more passionate people in the NBA than you do get in medical. So yeah, I can relate to that. So I want to also talk about, you've written a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. And it's a short book out there, but it's fantastic. Tell me, what was the impetus for writing that?
Yeah, this is probably a culmination of life's experiences, and as I mentioned in the book, somewhere around the year 2000, 2001, the winds of change were blowing, pretty strong in my life, and I became aware of life coaching through a postcard that wound up in my mailbox that really was my neighbor's. And so I delivered the postcard, but I had a chance to see it. And the seed was planted, and I did some research into what this was about and decided that I was going to look into this as a professional development matter for myself. So it was like a master's level course in the art of coaching through a sanctioned of the International Coach Federation, which it's not a regulated body, but it is in fact a sanctioning body for the world of professional coaching. And having gone through that, it was so cathartic in helping me understand, several different things. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. That there's three references of time in a person's life. There's a minute ago, there's this moment, and a minute from now. And most of us spend most of our time ruminating a minute ago about things that happened, maybe didn't happen the way we like them to happen, and we're sort of stuck in the past. And then the balance of our time is focused on the anxiety of a moment from now for things that have not yet happened, but we tend to project, the nervousness about those things. And we lose the very thing we have, which is this moment. This is really the only thing we have. And so the ability to be able to understand yourself from sort of a GPS perspective and see exactly how much time you're spending in a minute ago and a minute from now, and the fact that I'm losing this minute was extremely cathartic for me. And in a sports analogy, it's exactly the concept of the zone that everybody talks about when an athlete is performing at their absolute best, or even a professional, procurement or whatever it might be. When you are focused in a negotiation and you're zoned in, you are absolutely in this moment, and nothing is going to distract you because, A, you know what you're talking about, and you know the message you want to deliver, and you know the mins and the maxes of whatever position you're trying to pertain. So I relate this very strongly back to procurement and the concept of negotiating. But that's how this whole thing started. And so as a result of that, I had an entrepreneurial stint. I went actually into the school that I attended and became an owner and grew the business and became an executive and life coach for 5 years. And so what's happened since then is I've never lost that, those learnings that I have. And in fact, I use that in my performance management process for the people that report to me. They get an hour of my time each month. They have to manage it. The first half hour takes them through their performance plan, what's working and what's not working. And the second half hour can be about whatever they want to talk about because it's a safe zone. And human beings don't come to work leaving all of their troubles behind, and they're super productive. So as people feel comfortable that you truly are listening to them and not judging them, well, they're able to tell you some things that you might be able to give them some ideas, not telling them what to do, but giving them ideas as to how to free themselves from some of those burdens. So in a real high-level way, that's how I got to this. And the book was the culmination of those learnings and how I wanted to pay it forward to help people understand that they're really paper chains that keep many of us from achieving what they want to achieve.
That's amazing. And so many things that the book told me, even that our memories are pretty much inaccurate. It was really a light on for me to stop and pause and say, because I'm a multitasker and I go all over the place, is to stop and do something really, really well. And then when it's done, do the next task really, really well, rather than trying to do them all at the same moment. So it helped me. It helped me get a little more centered than I was before. So I think it's a fantastic book, and it was really helpful. But I wanted to then move into Certified Emotional Intelligence Practitioner. A lot of people don't know about EQ and IQ. Could we start with a basic understanding with that?
Yeah. Well, again, this happened back when I was in that entrepreneurial stint, and the idea of assessments of how you judge one's EQ. We know about the Myers-Briggs and some of these other personality trait kinds of assessments, and so emotional intelligence has to do really with how well you understand your own emotional elevator and you deal with it, and how well you can perceive the emotions of others so that you don't miss an opportunity to truly hear what someone is telling you or truly understand what's holding that other person back. And so, again, I come back into our current conversation about procurement, and it is extremely important to manage, for me, to manage my own emotions, because, again, I'm subject to so many different things that are passing through my psyche, to be able to parse those things out, be focused in the moment, and be in a calm state. That's my objective in terms of self-control for my own emotion. Second, and as important when you're having a conversation, negotiation, whatever it is to perceive how the other person is from an emotional point of view. Are they anxious? Are they nervous? If that's the case, what could you do to try to alleviate that? How can you help make that other person comfortable? Not in a manipulative way, but in a caring way, so that the conversation can be successful in whatever way success is defined by you and the person that's having it. So I would say that would be probably the most succinct way to explain that.
You know, you must be the most amazing boss to have all those skill sets and to be able to mentor your people. I think it's just incredible. I wish I had a mentor like that when I was coming through. So you've obviously been the who's who in procurement. You know, you're somebody that a lot of people look up to. So tell me a little bit more about change management and the importance, because I know that that's something you've always stressed, is that change management can make or break almost anything. So can you share some of your insights on change management?
Sure, and thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it, and I can tell you before I answer that question, you know, the people that report to me, it's one of the most impressive things that I hear, and I'm so proud to be able to hear it, that they tell me pretty much what you're saying, that, you know, but what a difference you make to me. I so much appreciate the fact that you listen and you're able to relate to me in these kinds of ways. So I take that with no grain of salt. That is incredibly important, and it is a big part of the pay it forward piece for me. So thank you for recognizing that.
Oh, no, it's definitely there. Wow.
So on the change management side, and I equate this back to, you know, some of the things we've spoken about already, and especially in the case where you're building a function, if not sustaining it. I have semi-annual meetings with the most senior folks here at the NBA, and I take them through a recap of the previous 6 months, what my function has done for them, a preview into the next 6 months in terms of what we know is coming, and I also go back and ask them about things that are challenging to them. I come back to their agenda, and I probably should have prefaced this by saying when I first got here, this set of activities I did on a monthly basis, where I went to meet these folks and had them get to know me. I'm not the new sheriff in town. I'm not here to tell you who you're going to be able to do business with or who you can't. I'm here to help take non-mission critical things off of your desk, put them onto my desk so that I can develop and deliver the most cost-effective spot-on services or goods that you need at the time in which you need them. So this was a primary important message that I had to start with and had to continue to deliver until people began to, A, understand it, and B, believe it by virtue of how I interacted with them. So the change management piece it's a continuous flow of things, from what you do in the beginning to how you continue to grow it and sustain it by having these levels of conversation. And what this does at the end of the day is build an incredible bond, to the extent that that bond is possible. Some instances you have personality challenges and you have to figure out other ways. But for the most part, people want to do business with people that they like and that they don't, you know, somewhat agree with, but have credibility and come from a place of, I can trust this person and this person has my best interest at heart. So that's the primary foundation of everything that I do and every relationship that I build here.
Yeah, you know, so when I started in consulting, I was a CPA doing total cost of ownership, cost modeling for sourcing. And I didn't have that side, the change management, the people side. I didn't have those skills. I came at it with the numbers are there. It's like, hey, you know, don't be stupid. Look at the bottom line. And I couldn't understand why numbers didn't motivate people. And so I was lucky to have someone a bit like you who was a PhD in organizational development sit me down and just teach me change management. And boy, my entire world changed and the way I approached, work changed. And yet I still meet CPOs today, Joseph, that don't understand that. They still try and ram their programs through. So it's a really important lesson. And I would love to invite you to come to one of our summits and present on this. I think it's something that everybody needs to understand and learn. And I guess that's probably why, your EQ is so high as well, is that you got it at a younger age and then lived it and breathed it. So really impressive.
And thank you. Again, I appreciate those comments, most kind. And I'm happy to, to help and participate wherever I can to, spread the news. And those of us that are seekers of truth, that understand that there's deeper value to things, and I truly believe that's part of who I am, if not a great part of who I am. These kinds of things, I don't want to say come easier, but the opportunities to learn them and explore them seem to be more consistent, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the windows and doors open and close all around us, and sometimes we're cognizant of them, and most times we're not, I think is the unfortunate side. But not everybody is going to get to the same place at the same time. And I remember, I don't know if I shared this with you when we first had a chance to chat, but that, through my training, I learned that in this example, there's three kinds of people. There's those people that don't know and think that they do know, and those folks should be avoided. There's those folks that don't know and don't know that they don't know, and they are like children and could be awoken. And then there's those that know and know that they know, and they should be followed. And so, you can put people in different groups for different times of things, and because we have a great preponderancy to try to classify and categorize things, and sometimes it's for good use, and other times it's not so good when we do that. But you see this all around you. People that are like batteries, and you get attracted to them, and then there's those that are drainers that just suck the life out of you. So sometimes we have a choice, and sometimes we don't, but we have to figure out a way around it, and that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
That's fantastic. So from being a consultant to being an entrepreneur to being in healthcare supply chain to the NBA to being an author to being a certified coach in EQ to having so much understanding of change management, you are an incredibly well-rounded person. And folks, I told you it was going to be interesting talking to Joseph. I just can't tell you how interesting of a person he is and how much we can learn from him. So Joseph, if you have a parting shot, what would you like to say as a takeaway for somebody? One takeaway. I know you have so many lessons that we can learn, but what would be the one? I think this is really about a personal assessment about, where you are. And to the extent that, your mind is open to understanding things from a different perspective, the idea of understanding emotional intelligence and understanding how it can or has either negatively impacted you in your life and how it can positively influence you going forward, I think is a great journey worth taking. It just opens up the doors to so many different things when you begin to see that the way you think causes you to feel what you feel. And when you feel a certain way, it dictates largely the actions that you take. So thoughts yield emotion, and emotion yields action. And the more a person can understand that and take back the control of the thoughts that you choose to spend your time on, you can choose to feel better. And so if you're feeling badly about something, take a look at the thoughts that are passing through your mind, and you'll largely find that they're negative or they're anxiety-based, and that's causing you to feel what you feel. So getting in touch with those things and putting them in perspective and truly recognizing that you can change the way you think. And if you do, your life can change in a most remarkable way. I would say it would be that. That's fantastic. Folks, remember the name of the book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. It's available out at Amazon.com. Not that I'm putting a plug in for Amazon. But Joseph, I've so enjoyed our time together today. And if nothing else, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm already a fan of the NBA, but I'm now a big fan of yours. So thank you for the time. It's so enlightening, and I enjoy every minute I get to spend with you.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for those kind comments, and it was my pleasure spending time with you and the listeners.
Well, thank you. Folks, we're going to wrap it up today with Art of Procurement, and please join us on another podcast very soon. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.